Hey guys, this is Joan Vanessa with Grace Family Love, and today we're going to be talking about how to help your boys become gentlemen.
And if you're like us and you believe that chivalry is not dead, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more content. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Grace Family Love podcast. I mentioned the word chivalry, and I want to read something that I think helps capture the message that we want to convey for this episode.
Yes, so this means a lot to me because I learned actually what it meant once I was older. I used to hear the phrase and I didn't really understand what it meant. I mean, I was younger, so now it has so much more meaning behind it because I have boys.
Yeah. So this is what chivalry would look like in dating. Okay, it says this. The chivalrous gentleman is an individual who uses courtesy and thoughtfulness to demonstrate commitment, respect, compassion, and trust, not to score points or conceal their true intentions in a new relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just faking it just so you can try to, have sex with the girl or fake to be something that you're not, but a true expression of someone who wants to show compassion.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll add a few words, right? To be loving, to treat this girl or this woman like a lady, like a princess. And those things will go so far in a relationship to help build a sense of, I guess, a deep connection. But there are also little things that build up and really give insight to the kind of person that you're marrying. So if it's the girl, right, you can look into these characteristics and qualities and know, man, this is going to be, a good relationship, and vice versa. So we want to talk about how we're raising our boys. We can give a little bit of before, during, and now, and what we hope to accomplish, because honestly, I didn't have a full understanding of why it's important or even place the value of why it would be important. And I certainly wasn't always showing it and demonstrating it by my example. So I've learned a lot. I've come a long way. So I come to you from somebody that was on both sides of the tracks. Yeah. Somebody before was very disrespectful, had no intentions of treating the person that I was with equal, right, or greater value. It was very selfish and very self-centered. So now that I'm learning these new things and I'm growing as a husband, I'm really seeing the impact that it has on you, right? Because now our relationship is different just by me trying to put an effort to be better. And so now I can see man, if I can teach this to my boys and have them avoid the heartache and some of the problems that I've had to go through and struggle through to get to where I am, man, it'd be worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah. And I don't want you to feel and I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, if this is even a nice way to say it.
I'm scared now.
But I don't want you to be in a victim mentality and say well, I don't have my husband, so I can't teach my boy to be a gentleman because they don't have that example. Because a lot of the times when I'm teaching Aiden or Brandon or Gavin at the moment, when I was teaching them how to treat a woman, it was because I was either, again, allowing or not allowing them to get away with certain things with me. So I was putting myself as that example of the woman. So again, in the episode prior to this, we were talking about what you allow and what you don't allow is what you're going to get from your husband or your sons. Okay. So when it comes to, teaching them, and I'm so big on this, and I tell them to be a good human. That's what I just like to say, be a good human. Because a lot of the times it's really easy to just get by with just surviving. Make sure you clean up your shoes. You didn't pick up your shoes. Pick up your shoes again. Pick up your shoes again. Pick up your shoes. Are you playing games again? Okay, you're playing games again. And lose focus on the things that are important and not allowing them to skip days or things or years go by without you making these principles and morals and just way of living a reality and just being the center of who they are. Okay, so when Joe was talking about being disrespectful, when I first met Gavin, which is my stepson, he had a really hard time with respecting girls. And if Joe didn't teach him that, like, I mean, not personally, like, okay, be disrespectful to women, but he had the way that his dad would talk to women, or the way that his dad would, his demeanor, he would carry that same demeanor. So when I met Gavin, and he was 5 years old or 6 years old.
Yeah, he was 6. So you're talking about him mimicking my behavior.
Yes, he was mimicking just the way that Joe was. So with him, I had to work really hard to kind of turn that around and to show him, like, that's not the way we treat women. That's not the way we treat our girl teachers. That's not the way we teach, like, we treat anybody. Like, we don't. So can you imagine me trying to do this with a little human being and then a big human being? Like, it was very difficult, but it was not impossible. God has such a good way of helping us and guiding all of us to kind of, again, go to the path where we belong. So Gavin did a huge turnaround to the point where one of his girlfriends, the mom was just like, I don't have nothing else but good things to say about Gavin. The first time, you know, he came over, he brought flowers to my daughter and flowers, like, to me. So it's like he took the approach of, like, okay, I need to understand that this is not the way that I needed to be. Okay, so this is the way that I need to be. Yeah. And he took that and he ran with that. So now when you have, you know, now we have Aiden, which is our youngest boy, like, he is he is so different, because now, like, the foundation that we're forming for him is we're not allowing anything else other than, okay, you have to be a gentleman. Like, there's no if, buts, ors, or ands. Like, that's just the way that it needs to be. So if you don't give your child like a way out, you know, not a way out, but what would I say? Like a
guideline or an outline, how to behave.
Yeah. Like, if you don't do that for them, they're not going to know, because they just simply don't know. You know, so you kind of need to keep in order on what is important. When you see people walking with bags of things, like, do you allow them to still sit there and just play video games while you're carrying all the grocery bags inside? That's a tough one. Or do you say, like, you get the keys, you just get your purse and you tell everybody, boys, there's groceries in the car. Can you please bring them in? Can you please make sure you put them away? Don't just sit them there. Because you have to make them think, okay, they brought him in. So what does that mean? That now you're going to put everything away? So you help them to understand, not just, again, give them hints and just sit there and watch. Are they going to put him away? I bet you they're not going to put him away. And just kind of set them up. Like, don't do that. You have to teach them.
Yeah, I like that you said don't set them up, because it's just something that kids most of the time, right, are not going to do what they don't have to do.
Yeah.
Especially if they're wrapped up in a video game or something like that, or a movie, or they're playing with their friends. That's always going to take priority in their mind, because it's having fun. The point is to tell them precisely what it is that you want. So like Vanessa said, in our house, if she goes grocery shopping, she comes home and she says, hey, can I get some help? There's groceries in the car. So we all roll up and we run out, and she doesn't carry the bags in, we do. Okay, and that's just something that we've established in our home. Yeah. And I appreciate too that you said about setting that example. So one of the ways that you can help the kids or help the boys is by dad setting the example, right? Dad opens the door to the car to let mom in. And if they're there to see it, then that expression is worth more than 1,000 words. You're demonstrating it, and so they are going to mimic what they see. And so it happens sometimes that parents are saying, do this, do this, do this, and then they do the opposite. Okay, well, your actions speak louder than your words. So they, even in spite of trying to tell them what to do, they're still going to mimic what they actually see you doing. So it's very powerful if you have the words that back up, right, the action, and vice versa. The other thing is that I thought was powerful that you said was you taking the time to guide and instruct. It's perfect practice, right? To treat their mom and be a gentleman. And so, hey, open the door for me. This is why it's important.
Yes.
This is why it could be something good for you in the future. Well, later on in life, when you get married, these are the kind of things that you're going to want to do for your wife. And so what we're doing now is we're instilling in them a sense of servitude, a heart to serve, which it may sound weird to say it that way, to serve your spouse. But in reality, that's what God calls us to do, to serve one another in love.
There's a verse.
In love. And what's more is, think about it like this. Women tend to give with all their heart, like naturally, right? And so that's why sometimes if you do things out of order, you get this young girl that's all wrapped up with this knucklehead, and everybody's like, what are you doing? He is no good for you. But you don't know him like I know him. But he loves me. He told me, like all that stuff happens when you do it backwards. Yeah. And now the judgment is clouded. So if you're doing it the right way and you're teaching your boys to serve, right, their future wife, what woman would not want to serve their husband if he's loving, if he's compassionate, if he's opening car doors, if he's bringing flowers, if he's like, no, I got it, babe, I'll carry that. No, I got you. And what wife would not want a husband like that?
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. We're trying to develop and establish a foundation that our kids can thrive on and be able to have this long-lasting, deep, intimate relationship with their future spouse. It might seem like it's all heavy and whatever, but the point is that in the beginning, I was just going from relationship to relationship to relationship. And so what happened is my oldest son, right, he was watching me go from relationship to relationship. People are coming in and out of my apartment, and I'm having these just different, I'll call them ladies, right, girls, different girls that are in my life. And then here's Gavin, right? And so I remember specifically one time they were, one of my girlfriends was trying to help me get Gavin ready for bed. And he was just like giving her the hardest time. And I was like busting up because I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. And so I'm like listening to them, and he's just like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And he's like maybe 5. He's like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not my mom. You're not my dad. And I was like cracking up. And so later on, right, she comes out and she's like, you deal with him. I can't deal with him. He's not listening to me. Tell him he needs to do what I say. And I go, why? You're not his mom. You're not his dad. He's just telling you the truth. And she looked at me like, are you serious right now? And so I went into, and I told Gavin, like, hey, don't worry about it. She's not your mom. You don't have to listen to her. And that's how I raised him. And so for him to take that new love, take this new relationship and apply that to his life, that was one of the, I guess, a big testament to his heart and who he is, because that was all him. Like, I couldn't have beat it into him because I raised him a certain way, and that stuck with him. He personally had to make the choice. And so what I want to get at with that is that maybe you haven't started the right way. Yeah. Maybe you're not doing it now, but it's never too late to start, because the love of God changes people's hearts. And when you come into a relationship and you decide right now that we're not going to, we're going to stop surviving and start thriving and start this new development, God works miracles. And what we want is we want the best for our children. We want them to have a loving relationship that's long lasting, right? That's not based on, oh, I don't like you today, so I'm going to go and get a divorce tomorrow. Yeah. We don't want that for our kids. We don't want it for ourselves, right? We know how much we struggle sometimes. It's a mental, emotional, spiritual struggle to be in a relationship. It's a lot of work. Yeah. How much of that heartache can we avoid if we build on this foundation now based on God's principles and what God would want for us, to have a heart of servitude, to be loving and compassionate? I mean, I get excited thinking about it, because sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think that if you take that and you work with, taking the spiritual part and allowing and putting the practice in, like Joe said, like the sky's the limit, right? So with your boys, like, you shouldn't be scared to all of a sudden, turn that switch on and say, okay, now we're going to do this. Because you do that all the time. You have anxiety one day or you're upset one day, and what do? Everybody's in trouble today. Like you change your mood however, whenever, and you change things because you want to. So doing something good for your family is not any different. It's just something good for your family. And you're changing things up again, like normal. You come and you bring rules, or you want something different done, and you do that. So when it comes to the boys, talking, even if you feel like they're not listening, is a big, big deal. Yeah. Okay. You need to be able to have these conversations with your kids. So one of the things that I want you to that's really important to me is talking to your kids about social media. Okay. Because if you are not controlling your kids, your boys especially, with what they're watching, with what they're doing, or what they're saying on social media, you're doing a huge damage to your kids. Our son is 13. Aiden's 13, right? 14. I always want, because he's so tall. So
he's 14.
Yeah, he's super, super tall. So I always think he's older than he is. And he's just really mature for his age. So he's going to be 14 in September, and he doesn't have social media. He doesn't even watch YouTube. And you can say like, okay, Vanessa, that's a little bit too sheltered. Well, regardless of, he's going to get it whenever it's time, but it doesn't benefit him in any way, in any shape or form at all. You tell me what's beneficial for him, and then I'll say like, okay, sure, why not? But none of it benefits him at all. He still gets to see his friends. He still gets to, play games, whatever, but he doesn't have social media. So when you give your kid social media and free access to a playground that has pornography, that has girls that can just be messaging them at all times and hours of the night, then you are doing them a disservice, because then there's no boundaries anymore. None whatsoever. And you're not allowing him to, and teaching him what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So when it comes to Aiden, he was messaging some of his friends, and it was late at night. I think it was like maybe 11. And there was a couple of girls in this group message, like a little thread. So they weren't saying anything appropriate, because I have access to inappropriate. I have access to his phone, and I can see messages and things like that. Also, if you don't have something like that on your kid's phone, then I urge you to do that. There's Mobile Watchdog. There's other apps with iPhone that connect you and link you to their messages, delete messages, deleted photos, all that stuff. So I told him like, okay, it's really late at night, and is this appropriate? And he said, it's not. And I said, why is it not appropriate? He said, because it's really late. And I go, I'm going to tell you why. What's another reason why it's not appropriate? I go, because you're not doing anything bad, right? But do you think that the mom knows that the girls are texting at 11 o'clock at night? And he said, no. I go, so off the bat, you are putting them in a compromising situation, and you are disrespecting their home, their mom, because you're putting them in a position where they're like almost lying, because they're not telling the truth that they're on like texting at that time. I go, so your job as a gentleman is to what? He's like, to cut it. I said, what time? 9:30. I said, why 9:30? He goes, because that's the time that they're supposed to be getting off their phone. I go, so then if they don't do it, then you make them do that. So I'm teaching him to be able to take those decisions and put the girl back into the place of being respected. Nice. So you need to be able to do that with your kids, and to teach them and telling them why is that appropriate. Because you want them to know and to say like, this is the type of person that I want to be. This is what I choose to be. But think about how many times have you had that conversation with your kids about what type of person do they want to be? What kind of consequences do they want for their life? Good ones or bad ones? And by you being able to do that, you can teach the person, your child, like, okay, if you like this girl, then you need to constantly be putting her in this place of being respected. And so that way, when the parents meet you, they're going to know, like, my daughter is behaving the way she should, not behaving the way she should not, and breaking all the rules because of this boy or this guy, like.
Yeah, because that will automatically create a barrier between, your child and their parents. So it might sound pretty heavy for, kids being so young, but again, we're instilling that in them, these concepts on what it means to be a gentleman and why.
Yeah.
Because the truth is too, like, I don't want for them to have a girl that's sleeping around with everybody. And a sign, right? If a girl's willing to sleep with somebody before marriage, and they're willing to sleep with one of my sons before marriage, then guess what, son? She's willing to do that to you with somebody else.
Yeah.
So if you want a faithful woman, then you need to seek that out. Okay. And first step is you be faithful first. Okay. You honor God. You're the one that needs to be a gentleman. You're the one that needs to protect the image of this girl.
Yeah.
And that's their responsibility. I want them to understand how important that is, because all of that, again, goes to help building this strong bond in relationship to where now, hopefully, God willing, they have a marriage where they're saving sex for marriage.
Yeah.
And so when they get married, right, and they are at the point where they're the only two that have been together with one another, that bond is unbreakable.
Yeah.
Right? When you do it the right way, there's no doubts or questions or guesses about exes and all these other issues that come with it. There's no, sexually transmitted disease is not even a thought. Like all these things that develop in that bond of marriage when the husband and wife wait to get married before having sex, like it creates something that goes deeper and beyond what we're even used to now, because culture is just so far away from that.
Yeah, it's super tainted.
And I'd like to think too that my boys as gentlemen would also be the kind of people that other people could look up to, right, as a leader. And I'm thinking as a parent, because I'm a parent now, like I want them to be men of character, men of substance, men that are trustworthy and faithful. And that when people look at them, when I look at them, I could know that they're people that would set an example for their own children, right? I don't expect them to think of that now. So because they're so young. So what do? I bring that into the conversation. Mom brings that into the conversation. Like one day you're going to have your own kids. Here's the difference. Instead of us saying, yeah, watch, one day you're going to have your own kids and all this stuff you're doing, I hope it comes back to you. Then you're going to see what I'm talking about. It's not to throw it in their face. Yeah. It's to say, look, boys, be men of character, right? Be leaders, so that when you have kids one day, you're setting the example in the way that they should go, right? It doesn't have to be this doom and gloom one day, right? I'm going to get my revenge when I see you suffering the way you made me suffer. Like, no, it's not like that.
Just choices.
Yeah, I can't express enough how important that is. And again, if we are raising our boys this way, to be men of substance and character, this is right, grand scale now. What would happen if everybody did that?
Be a lot less heartbreak in the world.
What would the world be like, right? If we all cared that much, to be faithful and trustworthy, to be compassionate,
to think about others without anything or any intention behind it. Yeah, just to think about others. Like it's a big deal, guys. It's funny because with the boys, I have this thing with them that I teach them, and at first they're just like that's so dumb, like. They didn't say that to me, but I could see it in their face. When they hand over a bottle of water or a drink or anything, I have them open it. And I say, you open it and you give it to the person half opened. And he's just like, why is that? I go, because it's the next step to doing something nice. You're handing them already the water bottle or whatever it is. You're doing an extra step to being caring. Let me help you with that. They're going to open it anyways. So you're helping them, just like you're bringing in the groceries and you're putting them away. If you keep teaching them to go that extra mile, that extra step, it's going to become a habit, and then they're going to be able to do it. Like it's second nature. But if you force them to do the first thing and then you don't allow them to know why is it great and they're doing a great job and thank you and you're going to be this kind of a person, and basically brainwashing them to let them know, like, man, this is the type of man any woman's going to want. This is the type of husband people are going to like be fighting over. Your wife is going to be so happy. And that's what I always tell them when they're doing something nice. I make sure I tell them that, like, man, your wife is going to be like, she's going to love me because, you know, I'm teaching you this, or she's going to love you, because it allows them to know and to kind of puff up their chest a little bit, because that's how they work. You know, you praise them a little bit and then they just kind of, they feel good. So if you let them know, like, man, you're doing an amazing job, they're going to feel great. But if all they're doing is sitting playing games, if all you're doing is nagging at them, if all you're doing is just allowing them to just sit and mope every time you're asking them to do something, then like, what's going to be of them when they're 18, 19, 20? What's going to happen? They're going to go into dating and to honking at the girl to get in the car, probably taking them to Taco Bell and saying, you pay for your own food because I barely have enough. You know, not even caring if the parent or the mom are okay with them staying up later or not. Like having sex on the first date, like you're allowing them to just, you're setting them up basically for failure, to be honest. You really are. So I'm not saying my boys are perfect. They're far away from perfect, but I'm giving them the tools. Now, if they're going to be the type of human beings that are going to be not choosing and grabbing the tools that they have, then I'm sorry for them, but they're going to have to pay the consequences.
That's right.
And they're going to have to deal with heartache. But it's not going to be on my hands. I'm going to say, I put the tools in your hands. It's up to you to use them. So that's our job as parents, as a dad, as a mom.
That's right.
Keep putting those tools. Keep putting those tools. And if you're like, Vanessa, it literally goes out through one ear and out the other. It's not true. They listen. I have a kid that is like the therapist for everybody because everybody calls him. And seriously, and he tells them, and he tells me what he tells them. And I'm like, you were listening. All those times that I thought you were not listening, you were listening. You know, so they do listening, and they do listening. They do listen. And if we're kind of, you know, harping down on the sex part, it's just because it's so lenient now. And I was talking to my son about that, and he asked me, like, so can we have sex before marriage or not? Like, is it okay to have sex as a teenager? So I said, look, everything's permissible. I go, can you drink a beer right now if you wanted to? He's like, I could. I go, is it going to benefit you in any way? It's not. I go, is there going to be consequences because you're going to drink a beer right now? He said, probably. I said, yeah, you're right. I go, so everything that's put in order, laws, regular laws, you can't drink till you're what? You're 21, right? For what? For specific reasons, maturity, for so many reasons. Mm-hmm. So the same thing happens when God puts orders and puts rules and regulations. It's for our own well-being. So when he tells us don't have sex before marriage, is because he's literally trying to give us the blueprint to having the best possible life we can on earth. Yeah. But when we go against that, we're literally going against the blueprint of a good life, of what he had in mind for us. So now I told him that. So can you have sex? I go, yes, you can. And I go, but now when you go to the love of your life that you're going to meet and you're going to love and you're going to say, man, I wish I can give you the world. I go, the thing that's the most precious, your body, your first everything. I go, you're going to have given it to somebody that you're probably not even going to remember her name.
Man.
And I go, so how beautiful would it be that the person you love with all your heart, that finally you know because you gave her that ring to say, I choose you for the rest of my life. You get to say, and you know why? How I know that I choose you? Because I saved the best that I have for you. I saved myself for you. It makes me want to cry because, like, I didn't get to do that. I didn't. And I suffered a lot because of that. And I told him, like, the first time that I had sex, like, it was horrible. I go, because at that age, you're not old enough to have sex. It was a horrible experience. And I go, so now even somebody that supposedly you love, you're going to make them go through that experience because they're not ready. You guys are too young to have sex, and you're going to make them go through this basically horrible experience, because like they're not going to feel anything good just so that way you can be pleased. Like, is that really love? Is it really love? And he's just like, I didn't think about it like that. And I go, I know you don't. I go, because you guys don't think that way. You guys, that's why you guys have us. So we can help you. So we can tell you these things. So if you don't tell your kids these things, they're not going to know. Yeah. Your daughters are going to end up having sex at 15, 16, 17 years old. It's younger and younger and younger by the minute, because they don't know how precious they are, how valuable and how precious their purity is and their body is. You know, your sons don't know that either. You know, sex is sex. Because why? Pornography is everywhere. I see boobs and boobies and butts everywhere. There's nothing pure about anybody's body anymore. You know? Sorry, guys. I'm just getting too passionate about this one.
No, it's good stuff.
It means a lot.
Yeah, I'm really happy that I'm not who I was. I'm happy that God has been moving in us to help us understand how valuable and how important that is. And again, I just can't express enough that if, as a parent, if you can think about what you went through, right, and play that out for just a moment and think to yourself, if I can teach this to my boys or teach this to my children and they can avoid just some of the heartache that I had to go through, wouldn't that be worth it? In the end, you know, it's not that you're sheltering them or it's not that you're keeping them from anything. One day they're going to grow up and leave the house, you know, maybe at 18 and maybe 17 and maybe 25, but they're going to leave and they're going to be able to do literally whatever they want to do. Trust me.